Greetings everyone and welcome back to the bench. Today on the bench I have a product to review from FNIRSI. This is a flat panel oscilloscope. It actually has a multimeter and a function generator built in. So yeah, this looks like it'd be interesting. You know, it is a budget device meant for somebody who doesn't want to spend a lot of money or have a lot of money, you know, a hobbyist that just wants, you know, the basics here. So I'll go through it and check it out. They also sent along this meter. I probably won't do a separate review on it, but it's a color screen, push button operated type meter. Just so you know, that's something else that's available from them. So take a look at the packaging here, see what they're saying. 2x50 megahertz, 4-bit half-true value. Okay. Well, I'm not sure what that's all about. Intelligent anti-burning. I guess that's protection built into the input so you don't damage it. Has a 4.3-inch touchscreen. I think these sell around $130 or so. So let me crack the shrink wrap on this thing and take a look at it. Okay, let's see what we get inside here. Get the manual and a, I guess a little quality control label there. And the unit itself, well, it's got a little weight to it, and I have to get it out of its packaging. I'll do that momentarily. Aren't you glad you clicked on this high quality John Audio Tech production? Doing this one-handed, holding the camera. We get a couple of probes, looks like there, and what else here? I guess that's the USB. This must be for the function generator and a set of meter leads. Okay, great. Let me unpack this stuff and take a look at it here. A quick overview of the unit here. It does have the masking film on it. I'll just leave that on for now. On the front we have the touch screen with some function buttons along the bottom. I do like the style of it. It has rubberized corner bumpers. The tablet scope I reviewed about a year ago was really plain looking, but this looks a little more solid, a little more durable, and it has some style to it. But anyway, at the top here we have the BNC connectors for the oscilloscope channels. I guess that'd be an SMA connector for the signal generator output. On the right side we have the ports for the leads for the multimeter function. Nothing on the bottom. On the left side we have the power button, USB jack, and a push button, or a reset button. On the back here we have a fold-out stand. That's kind of nice. One area of concern though is I'm not seeing any cat ratings for the meter function of this thing. And meters, you know, like this one will have a cat rating. So yeah, I'd be a little leery of using this thing at high voltage or high energy circuits. But, you know, for the hobbyist that might be using this on the bench, you probably want to just stick with lower voltages like 50 volts or less. I did check for continuity between the meter sockets and the probes, and I'm not getting anything, at least with low voltage with the meter. To be sure, I'd have to test it at higher voltage, but at least they do seem to be isolated. They do say in the manual not to touch the probe connectors when you are using the meter, so they're a bit leery of it too. But again, this is not a professional piece of equipment. It's more of a hobbyist type device. So yeah, I would stay away from using it with, measuring higher voltages. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Fire it up here. Okay, it boots up pretty quick. And it boots into the selection screen. So let's go take a look at some things here. First, I'll look at the Sig Gen. I want to set that up because I want to play with the scope. Unfortunately, I had to reshoot all this because the exposure of the camera washed out the screen. You couldn't really see anything. So hopefully it's better now. So with the signal generator, you have 3 pages of waveforms, 4 each. So you can just scroll through those. So yeah, you get the basic stuff. Here you can set the frequency using the keypad. And you can also just touch the screen here and set the level. That's peak to peak, by the way. Okay, so now we'll go over to the scope, and you just hit this button here. Use my flashlight so you can see what I'm pushing. And select scope. And I'll hit auto right here. It'll automatically set up the waveform there. There you go. I was kind of wondering, can you use the different functions when you switch between them? So yeah, you can use the function generator with the oscilloscope, and this button turns the signal off and on. So that's kind of nice. Of course, it is dual channel. I have channel 2 off. I'll turn that on. You get that other waveform, which there's nothing connected right now. So some of the other functions you get, of course, the vertical scale, the probe settings, 1:1, AC or DC coupling, and a bandwidth limit. I'm not sure what that's all about. You have a run and stop button over here, battery indicator. Now down on the bottom here they have this thing labeled Funcation. Okay, sounds like a disco song back in the 70s. So you have some options here for measuring. I have some turned on. Here are some of the options you have. And see, I have frequency, peak to peak, and RMS turned on. The output of the function generator, like I say, is peak to peak, 3 volts max. So it's going to be around 1 volt or so RMS. And you can save waveforms to export. You have cursor modes. You can turn cursors on and off. Calculations, has some basic calculation modes to perform between the channels. We have the little FFT. And just like the tablet scope, it's just kind of a little graphic thing. It's fluff, really. It doesn't have any scaling or anything showing. So it's just a very basic visual representation. I don't know how useful it is. Not very. Afterglow, that's kind of like your persistence, your phosphor persistence effect. You have a 1 second or infinite mode there. Of course, your XY mode you can use with the 2 channels. Correction, I think that's like a calibration. You can also save an image of the screen. 50%, I think that's for triggering. And coarse, fine adjustment, or they're calling micro. That is for the touch screen effects. So if I set it to micro and I move, yeah, it's a lot more precise. It doesn't move as swiftly as if I have that off or set to coarse. So set it back to coarse and see it moves a lot quickly now. It stays with your finger. So in fine mode, it makes it easier to move the cursors and things around. So the touch screen is pretty much just like the tablet scope. Like you can move the trigger point around just by tapping on it. Like I did before, you can move the waveform around. Tap on the left side to lengthen the time base and shorten it by tapping the right side. I think I neglected to mention there's a trigger menu as well. So I'll just throw that in there. So you got some options there. Let's take a look at the settings. Okay, it's just basic settings here, like the language, the screen brightness, the sound. There's a blue or a amber type theme here. Startup on boot. Oh, you can select which mode you want to be in when you turn the thing on. And we can scroll down here. Auto shutdown times. USB sharing. Factory reset about. This gives you like a version. Okay, so now I'm in the multimeter mode. And it has an automatic detection. So you just start measuring. So I put a 9-volt battery here, which is a bit worn down. Negative 7.48. So let me turn that around. And we're getting a positive reading. So let me try a resistor here. We'll automatically detect that I'm measuring a resistor. Yep, so 1 meg resistor. So yeah, that's working. Now if you wanted to set the meter in a specific mode, you hit this gear button. Oops. And there you can set the voltage or diode, continuity, ohms, capacitance, milliamps, amps, and temperature. Like we can go into voltage here and set for DC. You can set it for AC. I'm going to go back to DC here. And I'll measure the battery again. So it looks like in manual here you get a little graph. So I'm measuring the battery. And let me flip the polarity around and see what happens to the graph. Okay, negative. So I'm not sure what it's doing here. It's not really changing. The bar graph, it only changes with the reading, so it's not really quick or anything. So yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is with this little scrolling display here, but it's not really doing anything. Maybe I'll have to RTFM that one. Okay, well, it just popped up on the screen. So I don't know what's going on there. It just suddenly started displaying it. So right now I'm at 0 and 7 volts. Okay, see it popped up. And I guess it auto scales. Okay, now we're back at 0. Turn the battery around and measure it so it's negative. And it dropped to negative. Probe's off and it goes back. So yeah, there's a long delay. That's kind of silly. It's a bug or something. It's not displaying it. Like I said, it all of a sudden popped on seconds after I was taking the measurements. So yeah, I don't know what to think about that. I might need a bug fix for that. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll test a few things off camera and come back at the end of the video. I'm not going to sit here and measure a bunch of different resistors and voltage and frequency and all that, but I will test it. Okay, I'm running some tests here, just checking the measurements using the Feel Tech set for 10 volts peak to peak at 100 kilohertz and 10.4 on this thing. It's measuring the frequency well. And this scope, and it's a little closer, 10.1, and yeah, the frequency's spot on. So I would tend to trust the scope more. This one does have a little bit of discrepancy. Okay, I'm at the limits of the signal I can produce here on the bench. I have 24 megahertz set up on the Field Tech, and seems to be measuring it okay. 2.17 volts peak to peak. It's measuring the frequency, and this is what the scope is showing. Probably a little bit of clock jitter from the Field Tech. I'm looking at the square wave response here at 1 megahertz. Looks about the same on both scopes. So, it's doing pretty good. Triangular waveform at 1 megahertz. One thing I'm noticing here is when I set the time base shorter, I'm getting this jitter. That's with the triangular waveform. See, it's steady now. Not an issue on this scope. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. If it's triggering on some sort of noise in the signal. Well, it's jittering amplitude-wise. So yeah, some sort of issue there with the acquisition. I'm trying it at another frequency here, 1.27 megahertz. You can see it's really wild there. And it stabilizes. A little bit of jitter. But another thing you have to watch out for is aliasing. See, you kind of get these weird shapes. Yeah, there it looks like it's a normal waveform, but you know, it's just an aliasing artifact. There again, it looks like a good waveform, but I'm set way too slow. So if I speed this thing back up, yeah, it's really strange with the triangular waveform. Seems to have the noise gate, which, you know, when the amplitude is low enough, it just ignores anything below a certain point. And you can see some noise triggering it on there. So if I turn the Field Tech, so you can see the triangular waveform with all the noise in it. When I turn that off, it flatlines, but you can see it triggering a little bit from the noise. The tablet scope had that same noise gate. Some weirdness going on. I'm not sure what to make of it. Both probes are connected to the exact same signal source, both set for 1x. You can see both channels are set the same to its most sensitive point. Let me adjust the Field Tech here. So it's a triangular waveform. You see they're the exact same amplitude. But channel 1, it's got kind of a noise in it. See what happens if I turn channel 2 off. Oh, I just hit channel 1. Let's try. Darn it. It's hard to sometimes. Okay, those big spikes are gone now. Let me turn channel 2 back on. It's tiny buttons on this as it can be. See, now we're getting those spikes in channel 1. It's just kind of strange. Let me turn channel 1 off. And channel 2 is completely flat now. No noise or anything. You can see the noise in the background when I put a waveform up. So it's like it has that noise gate like the tablet scope did. It just stops measuring after a certain threshold and ignores any signal. You see it pops on every so often when the noise goes above that threshold. But yeah, that's kind of strange. Okay, so I'll turn... Oops. There you go. Channel 1 and channel 2 are on. Now we're getting those big spikes. There's the waveform. I'll leave it on. I'll turn channel 2 off. Easier when I'm not looking through the viewfinder to use the touchscreen. So the spikes are gone, and it doesn't seem to have that noise gate like channel 2 does. So yeah, I'm miffed at what's going on there. Seems like the scope is introducing its own noise when you're using the other channel. So yeah, with these budget scopes, you're going to see things like that. You just have to be aware of them. You can work around it, of course, but you know, just be wary that you might see these little things. I tested this thing. I didn't do every single thing. It takes a lot of time to test the scope thoroughly, and as you do, you might see these type of things pop up. But anyhow, I think I said enough. I'm going to wrap it up here. Just kind of do a summary of some of the findings here. First off, make sure you calibrate the probes. This is aimed at an entry-level market, and they don't say anything in the manual about calibrating the probes. At least I didn't see it. I might have missed it, but I did have to calibrate the probes. One of them was off pretty bad, so make sure you take care of that when you first set up the scope. As far as some of the multimeter measurements, the capacitive measurement was good down to 1 nanofarads. You can measure lower value caps like a 1 picofarad, but I noticed it measured off. It was measuring like 82, or my other devices like that thing there was measuring more correctly. And it seemed to be quicker with larger value capacitors like a 1000 microfarad cap. It measured it pretty quick. Meters usually take a few seconds before it gives you a reading, but this one seemed to do it a little faster. AC voltage measurements were good to 1 kilohertz and down to 20 hertz. Going above 1 kilohertz, the measurement started to roll off. Same with the AC milliamp. I checked several values of resistors up to 1 mega ohm, and it seemed to measure pretty accurately. So overall, what do I think of this thing? Now, for the money and having all the functionality built into one device, I think it's pretty neat. Like I say, it's not a professional device. I'm not going to trash it for not being perfect everywhere, but it does have some quirks you have to watch out for. And for the money, I would give it a recommended rating. And with that, thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.